The manga opens with a girl sitting at a table inside Cafe Tutuji, photographing her meal as she eats. She looks at the screen, briefly considers a wider angle, then dismisses the thought. Bringing the camera closer, she focuses on the food and continues to snap it with concentration. Further back, a waiter notices her and looks again, recognizing her as Koharu Sato from his class. She is known for her neat and well-kept appearance, which often draws attention. Because of this, many people have tried to approach her, yet she keeps her distance. She is not close to others, and her reputation was shaped by a past incident involving a student from another class. Her response during that incident became widely known, making her attitude clear to everyone. She treats people the same way regardless of who they are, and this behavior eventually led to her nickname. The waiter continues watching her, wondering why she is there alone. She remains focused on taking a photo of a pancake, her expression serious and intent. When he brings the pancake to her table, she does not notice him at all. She stays completely absorbed in what she is doing, unaware of his presence. It even seems possible that she does not realize she has a classmate named Oshio Suda. Realizing this, he decides he should not continue staring at her. While Satu remains seated, two boys approach her table. One of them addresses her casually, attempting to involve himself in what she is doing. Satu responds with clear disinterest, showing that she has no intention of engaging with them. The boy reacts lightly to her response, finding her reaction appealing rather than discouraging. Assuming she is taking photos for social media, he suggests taking the picture for her, attempting to get closer and proposing further interaction. At that moment, Oshio steps in and intervenes, making it clear that such behavior is inappropriate in that place. The two boys turn their attention toward him and laugh it off, brushing him aside as nothing more than a cafe worker. They tell him to return to his duties and not interfere, continuing to treat the situation lightly. Oshio then raises his voice and calls out toward the back, announcing that a customer has praised the pancakes. In response, the cafe owner comes out. He is a heavily built man, and his presence immediately changes the atmosphere. Seeing him, the boys panic and flee in fear, convinced they are about to face serious trouble. They rush away in a hurry, desperate to escape. Oshio sees Zeman, the owner of Cafe Tutuji, and Oshio's father. His long-held wish is for a customer to personally tell him that the food tastes good. Although he usually stays in the kitchen, this time he comes out in response to Oshio's call. After the boys leave, Oshio turns his attention back to Satu and checks on her condition. She looks toward him and says his name with hesitation. Seeing this, he realizes that she remembers who he is, and it surprises him. As he is still processing this, she suddenly stands up from her chair, steps toward him, and clings to him while trembling. She begins to cry, clearly shaken. Oshio freezes, unable to react immediately, struggling to reconcile this frightened image with the distant persona people usually associate with her. He then guides her into the cafe's office and has her sit down. He prepares tea for her and places a slice of pie in front of her. She eats it and reacts strongly to the taste. After a short while, he asks if she is feeling calmer and explains what kind of tea it is, mentioning that it is what he normally drinks. She then asks whether he knows who she is. He answers positively, explaining that he had considered speaking to her earlier but chose not to because she seemed deeply absorbed in her phone. Internally, he reflects that everyone in their year already knows about her reputation. Noticing how focused she had been before, he wonders what she was doing. She hesitates, and he reassures her that she does not need to answer if she does not want to. Satu suddenly calls out, pulling out her phone and asking him to look at something. He wonders if the device is malfunctioning, but she points to the screen. Taking the phone, he hesitates for a moment, thinking about whether looking through a classmate's photos could cause trouble. He sets the thought aside and checks the image, immediately noticing how poorly it is taken. The subject is unclear, the lighting is wrong, and the food barely looks appetizing. Only then does he realize it is a picture of the cafe's pancake, and he reacts in disbelief. She claims that she wants to post images online to gain attention, but struggles to get it right. She has no friends and wonders if she is simply uninteresting. Oshio listens carefully, taking the matter seriously and reminding himself not to treat it lightly. She adds that she is a high school student looking to find buddies like anyone her age, believing that building a presence on Instagram might help her connect with people. She enjoys desserts, so she goes out alone to try sweets and hopes uploading photos will start conversations. Oshio considers her approach practical and thinks it could help change how others perceive her. She admits she isn't skilled at photography and worries about being mocked if she posts her photos, which is why she has avoided creating an account. Observing her, Oshio realizes she is genuinely trying to change how people see her. The girl everyone calls cold is, in reality, simply struggling. When she describes her fear of having her belongings hidden or sabotaged, Oshio asks to borrow her phone briefly. Surprised, she hands it over. He takes a photo and shows it to her. She stares at the screen in disbelief. The image looks far better than her attempts. Shocked, she learns he also uses the platform. He explains that he manages the cafe's promotional account rather than a personal one. Seeing the account, she is amazed by its presentation and the number of followers, realizing he has built a sizable audience. Her admiration for him becomes apparent. She admits that she usually feels tense around others but is comfortable with her mother. She eagerly shows him another photo, seeking his opinion. Watching her closely, Oshio notes two things. Her intimidating reputation comes from extreme shyness, and her photography skills are remarkably poor. Her lack of skill is almost unique, making even ordinary tea appear unappealing. She takes the phone back, defensively commenting on the results, and Oshio reassures her that the image looks much better than before. She brightens instantly, wondering if continued practice could help her succeed online. He notes how quickly her hope returns after even small encouragement, though he worries her worst photos might be shared publicly if left alone. He suggests a method to improve her photos, and she agrees. As they examine the screen together, she is startled by their closeness. Oshio is equally surprised and notices she hasn't learned to focus the camera properly. He suggests it would be easier to learn if they looked at the screen together. From so close, he notices her appearance more clearly. Satu Koharu is undeniably attractive, one of the most striking students at school, with a figure suitable for modeling, yet her innocent, unguarded reaction makes him self-conscious. She pauses, expressing gratitude for his help and saying she found him impressive. Suddenly, Oshio hears his father call urgently, warning that a large group has arrived. He responds immediately and rushes out of the office. After his father leaves, Oshio realizes staying any longer might be unwise, seeing how many people are nearby. Satu apologizes for troubling him and decides to go home, thanking him again. Oshio agrees and considers asking her to relay a message to his father. Before leaving, she mentions meeting again at school. Once she departs, Oshio reflects that it may be some time before he can return to work. His heart races, and the events feel almost dreamlike. For the first time, he realizes he has shared a private conversation with the girl he has long admired, alone in the same room. As Satu walks away, she worries that she might have said something awkward. Oshio reassures himself he probably did not. In that moment, he understands that the quiet, complicated story between him and Satu Koharu, the girl everyone calls Salt God, has begun. Looking at the table she occupied, he notices she has forgotten her phone. Satu comes home and goes straight to her room. She hugs a pillow, then turns over on the bed and lies face down. Her thoughts drift back to the cafe, to the unexpected sight of Oshio-kun working there, and to the moment he saw her when she was at her most vulnerable. She worries about how that scene might have appeared to him, yet at the same time, her mind lingers how composed and impressive he seemed. The memory leaves a strong impression on her. She then remembers the photos they took earlier that day and thinks about checking them. Recalling the advice he gave her, she feels certain they must have turned out beautifully. As she reaches for her bag to take out her phone, she pauses. After searching again, she realizes it is not there. The absence unsettles her, and the thought crosses her mind that she may have left it behind at Oshio's place. The idea immediately troubles her. She considers going to retrieve it, but she assumes the cafe must already be closed. She hesitates, imagining how inconvenient it would be and how uncomfortable she would feel if she were to see him again so soon. The embarrassment alone makes her falter. Even so, after a moment of inner conflict, she decides to leave the house and head toward his place. As she walks, she notes the familiar entryway that marks the path ahead, knowing his house lies just beyond it. Her heart races, overwhelmed by the awareness that he is the first person she has ever felt this way about. She feels nervous, but his image stays in her mind, like an afterimage she can't shake. Until now, she has only admired him from afar, never daring to speak to him at school. Her thoughts keep returning to small details that stand out. The way his smile tightens his expression, the gentle look of his hair, and the sleepy look in his eyes. Moreover, there's his job at a classy cafe, and his presence online, which make him seem even more distant. Compared to him, she feels he must be admired by many. Even as these thoughts swirl, doubt creeps in. She hesitates again, torn between turning back and continuing on. Part of her feels she has already gone too far to stop now, yet another part urges her to give up and return home. Eventually, she finds herself back at the cafe. When she looks around, no one is in sight. The place feels strangely quiet, and she is left wondering why it does not seem to be closed yet. She steps a little closer to look again and realizes that Oshio is there. He is seated alone, calmly drinking tea. When she calls out to him, he turns toward her and addresses her by name, explaining that he has been expecting her. He stands up, walks over, and accurately guesses that she has come to retrieve her phone. He hands it to her, confirming her suspicion. She is taken aback and asks if he had truly been waiting. He explains that he assumed she would return once she noticed it was missing. After that, he remarks that although it is not very late yet, she should still take care on her way back home. Hearing this, she grows slightly flustered and suddenly asks if she may take a photograph. She claims that she wants to capture the cafe's garden, mentioning how attractive it looks and how it might receive attention online. In her haste, the camera moves quickly, and she immediately realizes she has spoken clumsily. She repeats that she never intended to photograph him. When he asks if she means the garden, she confirms it, and he agrees without hesitation. As she prepares to take the picture, she smiles apologetically, feeling that she might be causing him inconvenience. Inwardly, she questions why she brushed things off so lightly. Her hands tremble from nervousness, yet her body refuses to act the way she wants it to. She tries not to look awkward in front of him, but the more she thinks about it, the more inadequate she feels. Lost in her thoughts, she doesn't notice him approaching from behind. He gently takes her hand and offers to help. When he takes the photo, the front camera accidentally turns on, capturing both of them in the shot. He quickly realizes the mistake, explains the camera is on the wrong mode, and suggests taking another picture. She smiles and says it's fine, thanking him because the photo looks good. As she leaves, she tells him she'll see him at school. He watches her go, a little puzzled, and simply says goodbye. Satu runs happily while looking at the photo of herself with Oshio, her excitement causing her to sprint forward. Suddenly she kneels, admiring their photo. Meanwhile, after she leaves, Oshio sits down on the floor too, and begins to cry quietly. His father approaches and asks if he is all right. Oshio immediately worries that he might have said something strange, but his father reassures him, telling him that he handled the situation well and that everything was fine. Feeling relieved, Oshio lets out a quiet sigh of gratitude. He reflects on how nervous his heart always feels whenever he is around Satu-san. Even though she may not recall, he knows that today is not the first time they have spoken to each other. 2 years earlier, Oshio sits in his classroom at school, staring ahead as his thoughts dwell on how poorly his recent tests have gone, with mathematics troubling him the most. Nearby, he hears a girl reacting to her own difficulties with Japanese. When his gaze shifts toward her, he notices her condition and realizes that she has not eaten anything. Judging by her appearance, he assumes she is tense or possibly unwell. His attention settles fully on her, and he tries to check on how she is feeling. She avoids him, however, asking to be left alone. Despite her response, his concern does not fade, and he finds himself unable to simply overlook her situation. The coldness in her words catches him off guard, leaving him surprised by how distant she seems. After a brief moment of hesitation, he reaches into his bag and pulls out a small pouch. Inside are sugar candies that his father insisted he carry, believing that sweet food helps restore energy when someone feels worn down. Oshio offers some to her, explaining the reason in an awkward and uncertain way, while also admitting that he has never personally noticed much of a difference. Her first reaction is irritation, and she questions why he is involving himself. In response, he reasons that they can be classmates and will likely continue sharing the same space. After a short pause, she hesitantly asks for one piece. He agrees without hesitation and hands it to her. As she eats the candy, she comments that it is nothing more than hardened sugar. The remark makes him feel embarrassed, but she continues speaking, admitting that despite her words, she does feel slightly calmer. The sweetness lingers pleasantly, leaving behind a comforting impression. In the end, she expresses her gratitude, sincerely thanking him for the small yet meaningful gesture. In the present, inside Class 2B, Oshio sits at his desk, focused on his work, though his posture clearly reflects exhaustion. A boy approaches and stops beside him, casually commenting on something unusual he noticed earlier. Oshio looks up, recognizes Ren, and briefly wonders what subject comes next. Ren quickly corrects him, pointing out that it is already lunchtime and remarking on how drowsy he looks. He barely manages to respond, his fatigue obvious. Reacting to this, Ren grabs his head and forcefully tries to wake him, complaining about having to look at a sleeping classmate while eating. Oshio defends himself, explaining that he has barely slept. Hearing this, Ren immediately becomes interested and presses him further, asking what kept him awake. In his own thoughts, Oshio admits the truth to himself. It has been a long time since he last spoke to the girl he likes, and the excitement from that interaction kept him awake until morning. Even so, he knows there is no chance he could admit this to Ren. Instead, he brushes the question aside and claims that he was simply watching videos online. Ren bursts into laughter and mocks him loudly before calling out with excitement, promising to show him something that will wake him up instantly. He dismisses dramatic stories, idols, and online personalities, insisting that this is something different. When Oshio asks what he means, Ren points toward another area of the classroom. Following his gaze, Oshio immediately notices Satu standing there. The sight makes his body tense, and his unease becomes apparent. Ren teases him, pointing out that he seems fully awake now. Internally, Oshio panics, wondering how long she has been standing there and when she started doing that. According to Ren, she has been there for several minutes without moving at all. Half-jokingly, he suggests that Oshio must have done something to upset her. While speaking, Ren holds his bread and continues watching her with interest. Still confused, Oshio asks what he means by that. Ren exaggerates the situation, claiming that whatever Oshio did must have been serious enough to provoke such a reaction. He remarks that she looks genuinely angry and insists that Oshio has made a huge mistake. Our lad immediately denies it, but Ren points out that her unmoving presence has begun to unsettle everyone else in the room, as if something could happen at any moment. Oshio's thoughts begin to spiral. He wonders if she became uncomfortable after what happened the previous day. Even though they had barely spoken before, he had taken her to his room and even held her hands. The contrast feels like falling straight from happiness into despair. His head lowers as guilt and regret start to overwhelm him. Suddenly, Ren notices movement and begins to say that Satu is coming over. Oshio, however, remains lost in his thoughts, criticizing himself for getting carried away the night before. Ren tries to pull him up forcefully while calling his name, but he does not react. His thoughts grow darker, filled with self-loathing and a desire to disappear entirely. At that moment, Satu arrives directly in front of him and calls out his name. Oshio instantly lifts his head in surprise. Speaking quickly and urgently, she asks about exchanging their mine IDs. He reacts with confusion, not fully understanding what she means at first. Growing flustered, she hurriedly corrects herself, stumbling over her words as she elaborates that she wanted to contact him, then immediately apologizes for how she phrased it. She admits that she had been thinking about sending something and tries to clarify her meaning. Oshio asks if she remembers. She refers to the previous night at his house and specifically mentions the selfie they took together. The truth hits him all at once, and panic floods his mind as he finally understands the situation. Their classmates whisper about their unexpected closeness, surprised that Satu is the one initiating interaction, something they've never seen before. They try to read more into it than necessary. Still caught up in the awkward tension, our lad snaps back to the present, calling Satu-san's name. He asks if she's thirsty, but the question leaves her uncertain. He suggests leaving the room together, and before he fully realizes it, his hand reaches out and closes around hers. The sudden contact makes her surprised. She tries to stop him, but he gently guides her forward as they leave the classroom. From his seat, Ren watches the entire scene unfold with clear interest. Once outside, Oshio stops, and the reality of what he's done hits him. Satu looks at him and points out what just happened. Her words immediately make him panic. He lets go of her hand, flustered, and worries about how the moment might have appeared to her. They remain standing there as the awkwardness lingers between them. When Satu apologizes, the confusion he feels only grows stronger. He cannot understand why she believes an apology is necessary. As she explains, saying his earlier behavior seemed like avoidance, he realizes there was a misunderstanding. He had only been trying to avoid making things awkward in front of everyone, but it gave her the wrong impression. Taking time to reflect on her words, he moves to clarify his true feelings. He explains that he did not feel negatively at all, and admits that in truth, he feels quietly pleased by it. When Satu seeks reassurance, his response leaves no room for doubt about his sincerity. Wanting to resolve the situation properly, he agrees to share his mine ID. She agrees, and the tension between them gradually settles into mutual understanding. As the moment passes, his attention turns inward once more. Looking at her, he reflects quietly on his own behavior and realizes how immature his earlier thoughts had been. He reminds himself that she has already stated her desire for friendship and that she meant to share pics rather than suggest anything deeper. He understands that being chosen first does not carry special meaning and cautions himself against reading too much into it. Still, her calm and gentle expression almost leads him astray, briefly allowing him to imagine feelings that may not exist. Recognizing this clearly, he knows it is a misunderstanding he must avoid. Even so, he does not choose to abandon his affection. He understands that revealing his emotions now would only trouble her and create discomfort. Instead, he resolves to wait, believing there will be a proper time in the future when he'll confess. He firmly trusts that day will come. Until then, he decides to begin with a simple connection, accepting the role they share now while quietly anticipating what lies ahead. Not long after, he shares his ID and asks her to connect with him. She agrees and sends a message while standing right in front of him, leaving him briefly puzzled. Moments later, he notices she invited him to drink boba after school. When she waits for his response, he hesitates only briefly before agreeing that if she is comfortable spending time with him. Standing beside someone so charming causes him to question his resolve, and he begins to wonder how long he will be able to remain content, keeping their relationship within the boundaries he has set for now. After school, they go to a tea shop that is always crowded. The line stretches far, and Oshio notices it with surprise. Satu becomes immediately enthusiastic when she sees the bubble tea. Oshio gently encourages her to stay calm and asks if she is okay with waiting in the long line. She assures him that it is fine, insisting that they have already come this far and there is no turning back. Oshio briefly reflects that she is very aware of even the smallest and most random things. He suggests that they get in line quickly because he is starting to feel thirsty. Satu asks if he is certain, and he confirms, explaining that he wants to try the drink anyway. Then he tells her that the drink is meant for her, and Satu pauses, trying to understand what he means. Oshio clarifies that he intends to help her, explaining that everything is arranged for her to share the experience and connect with friends online. Satu listens, somewhat puzzled at first, but eventually acknowledges that his plan makes sense. They continue walking forward, and Oshio begins eating quietly by himself. The way Satu reacts makes him feel slightly uneasy, and for a moment, he almost thinks that she genuinely wanted to spend an after-school outing with him. He quickly realizes, however, that this is simply part of the plan to guide her into becoming more active online. Cheerfully, he tells her that they should get in line, and she lowers her head and agrees as they join the queue. At that moment, the sun is directly overhead, and he points it out. Satu confirms, acknowledging the heat. Standing outside under the summer sun while waiting for a cold drink feels ironic. Even though school has just ended, the early summer heat is intense. In front of them, 3 girls are talking and laughing among themselves. Observing them, Oshio feels uncertain where to focus his attention. Satu calls out to him, explaining that she was just saying his name. He notices her unusual behavior but resigns himself to it. She begins playing around on his face, and he wonders whether she is distracted by another game. At the same time, a voice calls out from behind, pointing out a wardrobe issue. Oshio is startled, noticing her reaction, and Satu quickly adjusts herself. He wonders why the girl is reacting so strongly and complies with the correction. After waiting for about half an hour, their drinks finally arrive. 2 cups of Assam bubble tea with foamed milk on top are placed before them. Satu takes her drink and remarks on what bubble tea is. Oshio acknowledges her comment, and she immediately begins thinking about how to photograph it to share online. He explains that the simplest approach is to include the store's exterior in the background so that the source of the drink is clear. She studies the shopfront as he suggests, understanding that showing both the store and the cup in the same frame is important, and she notes to be careful not to collide with others while taking the picture. As they move closer to the shop for a better angle, Oshio mentions that he might try preparing the drink himself someday. Satu takes a photo and proudly shows it to him, but he notices that the focus of the image is mostly on her hand. A voice from behind draws their attention again, pointing out the girls nearby. They watch as the 3 girls engage in a playful activity involving the bubble tea, impressing Oshio. He realizes that this is the bubble tea challenge, where the tea is balanced and consumed through a straw without using the hands. Satu expresses interest in trying it herself, causing him to feel flustered. She insists that she can participate in the trend and is determined to attempt it immediately, excited by the challenge. Satu tries to stop him, but he proceeds with the challenge anyway. After finishing, she asks him what he thinks. Oshio reacts with amazement, noting the effect of the drink. Suddenly, she loses her balance, and he steps forward to prevent her from falling, placing a hand on her waist to steady her. He apologizes for the incident, and she responds in kind. He internally feels intense embarrassment. Meanwhile, one of the girls nearby remarks that she will try the same challenge with her boyfriend next time. They both sip their tea in silence. Oshio feels awkward about his earlier actions. He only meant to prevent her from falling, yet he now worried that he touched her in a way that made her uncomfortable. Believing she might dislike him, he decided he needed to apologize. He calls out to her softly. When she looks up, tears are running down her cheeks. She whispers, blaming herself for everything that went wrong. Even small tasks, like taking a good picture of her bubble tea, felt impossible, and now she worries that asking Oshio to come along was a mistake. Oshio asks her to hand him the cup as he takes a picture. He explains that what matters is not the tea itself, but the memory of where it came from. Satu looks at the photo and quietly acknowledges its beauty. Oshio reassures her not to belittle herself and tells her that there are people who appreciate her, though she only needs one. Satu mentions her plans for Saturday, asking if Oshio would accompany her to try ice cream rolls. Oshio, caught off guard, politely declines, saying he is busy that day, but encourages her that she can manage without his help. He hands her phone back and apologizes for his abruptness. Satu thanks him for the day, and they prepare to leave. She walks away from the tea shop. On Saturday, Oshio works at the cafe, finishing the cleaning. He then considers offering tea to his father and notices him stretching. He reflects silently that it has been 5 days since he visited Tea Pearl with Satu and realizes he has not spoken to her since. He wonders about how he should have responded to her invitation, thinking about her ability to make friends through her posts and that she can take pictures on her own. He considers that with practice, she will gradually strengthen her skills and that other people may show interest in her as well. Oshio takes out his phone and checks the time, reviewing Satu's social media account. He notes how notifications automatically alert friends when someone joins, suspecting that Satu may not be aware of it. He feels a mixture of relief and self-reproach, realizing another day has passed without interaction with her. He carries tea to his father, who comments on the strain in his muscles. Oshio internally questions the meaning behind his father's words. His father shares that since their mother left, he has been protecting the cafe and Oshio, both of which are irreplaceable and valuable. Oshio thanks him quietly, though he wonders why such matters are being brought up now. His father observes that Oshio is hesitant about pursuing a girl he likes and teases that it is evident from his demeanor. He admits it silently, thinking that the initial remarks could have been omitted, though he feels it cannot be helped. The cafe cannot yet afford additional staff, even though business is growing, partly due to social media promotion. He recognizes the importance of the cafe both to his father and to himself. His father begins recounting his college days in the Sweets Enthusiast Club, a peaceful group run by 4 men who were fascinated with rich desserts. Among them, a person known as Muscle Lord joined after being expelled from the football circle for secretly adding protein to drinks. The turning point in their interactions came when they shared the same pancakes, which became the foundation of their bond. Despite Muscle Lord's unusual obsession with protein, the group welcomed him. Oshio watches quietly, thinking their story sounds a bit over the top, and noticing how unusual the group was. He listens as his dad recounts that adding protein to the pancakes caused confusion and arguments among the group. Over time, they reconciled. Oshio considers that the crucial part of the story is the explanation of these events. His father concludes by revealing that the person known as Muscle Lord is, in fact, Oshio's mother. Oshio feels confused, and his father notices. He admits that their conversation had gotten off track and reminds Oshio that they were talking about the strain in his muscles. He explains that, like people before him, muscles grow through effort and tension. Life's challenges can be uncomfortable and stressful, but they also help us grow. If muscles struggle without being challenged, it shows a lack of proper effort. Oshio thinks about this, realizing that even though his father is right, some situations cannot be changed. His father then suggests getting help from someone in the Sweets Enthusiast Club to assist with the cafe on weekends. He stresses that it's important for Oshio to face challenges and take responsibility, as it's part of learning. He thanks Oshio for everything he's done so far, recognizing that the cafe's progress is because of his efforts, encouraging him to keep pursuing what he wants while leaving other responsibilities in capable hands. At that moment, Oshio notices a notification on his phone showing that Satu has posted her first picture on social media. Inspired, he decides to borrow his father's bike and heads out. His father calls out encouragement from behind, assuring him that he supports him no matter what, cheering him on as he leaves. Satu enters the ice cream shop, carefully trying to take a picture of her dessert. She feels drained, overwhelmed by the effort it takes to upload even a single image online, the pressure of having no followers, the uncertainty of how others might react, and the expectation of thousands of viewers weigh heavily on her mind. She thinks of Oshio, who posts impressive photos almost every day with effortless confidence. Comparing herself to him makes her feel rushed and inadequate. She begins eating the ice cream, uncertain if it even tastes good. Watching other girls at a nearby table enjoying theirs, she questions her own sense of taste, but finishes what she has, reminding herself not to waste it. Memories of Oshio flood her mind, how he saved her at Cafe Tutuji, taught her photography, and accompanied her to get bubble tea. Despite her inexperience with relationships, she realizes his kindness is extraordinary, and she has relied on it more than she should. Satu reflects on her motivations for being active on social media. She initially wanted to get closer to Oshio, not make friends. Her goal was to match his presence, to feel equal to him. Now, she admits to herself that she was naive. Oshio has always been out of reach, like a flower atop a distant summit. Even small pleasures, like eating an expensive ice cream, bring little satisfaction if her only goal is to be near him. She understands that her desire was never about food or social media. It was about sharing experiences with Oshio, a longing connected to her first love. When she calls him, he arrives at the shop. She notices the toppings on her ice cream and immediately recognizes them as from the shop they both know, despite no visible labels. She is struck by how much he notices, how skilled he is at observing details. This only deepens her understanding of her own shortcomings in photography and online sharing. She admits to herself that she has been pushing beyond her abilities, trying to be someone she is not. Oshio points out problems in her picture. The filter does not suit the image, the subject is difficult to see, and the angle is taken from too high, weakening the presentation of the cup despite its appealing design. Yet he reassures her that her attempt is far better than his own early efforts. He shows her one of his first photos, a pancake picture. The quality is poor, and she realizes she has never seen it online. He explains that it embarrassed him so much he never shared it. He shows more failed attempts, one shot from directly above, another ruined by harsh sunlight, and one where he adjusted the shot so long the toppings melted. Satu is stunned by how many photos he still keeps. He explains it took nearly 1,000 tries before he felt confident sharing a single picture. At the time, he wanted to support his father in the cafe, and improving his skills was the least he could do. Satu admits she always thought his success came naturally. He corrects her, describing the study and anxiety behind each effort. He notes that now, both of them have shared their work online and, in that sense, are no longer outsiders. He proposes continuing together, mentioning a shaved ice shop in a nearby town that has become popular online. He offers it as a way to make up for the day. Satu hesitates, aware of her lack of confidence and her difficulty taking good pictures. He assures her that he can guide her. She reflects on herself, her dullness, her struggles with conversation, her lack of close friends. He admits he is not especially entertaining either. She compares herself to the other girls at school and wonders if it would still be acceptable to be by his side. He responds with a gentle expression, making it clear that she is the only person he truly wants to go with. She keeps blaming herself, confused that she has fallen in love again with her first love. Oshio sits at his study table, lost in thought. A particular line echoes repeatedly in his mind, something often mistaken for a famous saying, yet actually spoken by his closest friend, Misono Ren. It reflects the idea that a man's pride, though small and fragile, is not something he would normally discard without reason. According to Ren, the only time a man willingly abandons such pride is when he is pursuing the woman he truly loves. Oshio recalls how Ren once humbled himself completely for his former girlfriend, even when she showed him nothing but disdain and may or may not have treated him harshly. Despite that, Ren still lowered himself and pleaded for reconciliation. That image remains vivid in Oshio's memory. He remembers how clearly Ren shared this belief that day, repeating again and again that a man only throws away his vanity when chasing the woman he loves. Now, Oshio realizes that moment has arrived for him as well. Even so, he cannot deny that Ren's words carry truth. At 9:30 that night, Oshio picks up his phone and sends Ren a message, telling him that there is something important he wants to ask. The following day at school, he speaks to Ren in person. Ren reacts with disbelief and points out that Oshio has set his sights on an almost impossible goal, something he never imagined would involve Satu. He admits his surprise, especially since Oshio never seemed interested in romance at all. Ren explains that, regardless of her strengths or flaws, Satu naturally draws attention wherever she goes. Still, if he were the one choosing, he would never select her as a target. Even so, he begins to view Oshio with a bit more respect. As Oshio listens, he reflects silently on how unpleasant Ren's personality can be. He thinks that if Ren were not his closest friend, he would have already ended their friendship. After a brief pause, our lad brings up the issue that has been bothering him, asking whether people think he is pursuing Satu and whether others are already aware of it. Ren clarifies that he is the only one who believes Oshio is aiming for her. This surprises him, but Ren immediately explains the reason. Most of their classmates already assume that Oshio and Satu are in a relationship. Oshio reacts internally with panic. He firmly denies that anything of the sort exists between him and Satu. Ren, however, remains unconcerned and understands immediately, judging from Oshio's reaction alone. He mentions that recently many boys in their class have been approaching him, constantly asking what Oshio did to win over someone like Satu. Confused, Oshio wonders why Ren is the one being questioned. Ren explains that there is no other choice since those boys are too intimidated by Satu to even attempt a normal conversation with her. Oshio thinks again about how cutting Ren's words always are. Ren praises him in his own twisted way, noting that despite his inexperience, he seems to be heading in the right direction. The comment irritates Oshio more than he expects, and he wishes that Ren would stop labeling him that way, as the repeated remarks continue to grate on his nerves. Ren does not stop there. He questions Oshio relentlessly, wondering whether he is pretending not to understand, hiding his embarrassment, or joking despite having been serious earlier. Oshio becomes confused by the line of questioning and tries to grasp what Ren is implying. Ren responds with blunt contempt, thinking that Oshio's inexperience is unpleasant and adding that Satu is not someone who can be approached easily. He follows this with his usual harsh teasing, insisting that Oshio keep his distance, as if even standing too close would be troublesome. He grows more irritated and internally rejects the idea, knowing that such things are not transferable in any way. While walking, the two of them arrive at a shop called Moon. Ren points out that they have reached their destination and makes it clear that this place is his personal recommendation. The store operates during fixed daytime hours and carries a distinctive atmosphere. They step inside together, and Oshio looks around in disbelief. He is struck by how impressive the place is and realizes that it is a second-hand clothing shop rather than the kind of large retail chain he had imagined. Ren scans the interior and casually notes that someone seems to be missing. Oshio examines the items more closely and wonders whether the clothes and shoes on display belong to someone unusual, noticing details that make him question their condition. Nearby, a woman begins explaining the origins of the clothing in great detail. She identifies specific garments as rare military pieces from Europe and describes the materials and craftsmanship with technical precision. Her explanation continues at length, filled with unfamiliar terminology, and Oshio finds it difficult to follow. He senses that the information may be beyond his level of understanding. Noticing Oshio's reaction, the woman abruptly apologizes for startling him and cheerfully introduces herself as the shop clerk. Ren recognizes her immediately and addresses her familiarly, revealing that she is his older sister. This revelation shocks Oshio. She formally introduces herself as Misono Shizuku, an employee of the vintage clothing store Moon. With confidence, she declares her intention to transform Oshio into someone exceptionally charming, mentioning that Ren has already spoken to her about him. As he processes this, his thoughts drift to a memory involving his mother. He recalls once making a careless remark that resulted in being struck on the head. From that experience, he remembers words often framed as wise sayings. Unlike famous quotes attributed to great figures, these words belong to his mother. They emphasize that a woman's pride is something deeply valuable, never to be discarded, and something that should be protected throughout life. He also recalls her firm stance against violence, despite delivering the lesson forcefully herself. Reflecting on it all, Oshio concludes that the idea behind those words is sound. On the other side, Satu asks her cousin for assistance, explaining that she needs help deciding what to wear. Her cousin immediately understands the situation and assumes it is related to going out with someone. Satu explains that there is no one else she can rely on besides her cousin. Hearing this, her cousin agrees. She thinks that if Satu were left on her own, she might end up choosing something odd. Curiosity soon follows, and she wonders what kind of boy is involved. Naturally, she asks whether he is good-looking. The question catches Satu off guard. She reacts with visible surprise at the implication and internally denies that her connection with Oshio has reached that level. She reminds herself that their relationship is not defined in such a way yet. Satu's cousin, Pseudo Rinka, is 15 years old and currently in her third year of middle school. She is 2 years younger than Satu, despite also being her cousin. Even with the age difference, Rinka teases Satu mercilessly. She fixates on Oshio's name and mocks Satu for hesitating. She points out that Satu is already in high school and still speaking as if nothing is certain. Rinka suggests that if Satu remains passive, someone else might claim him first. Satu reflects on this with frustration. Although she is older, she constantly feels looked down on. She thinks about how Rinka is always sharp-tongued and difficult to deal with, repeating to herself that she is, in fact, 2 years older. Rinka circles back to the same question and again wonders whether the boy is attractive. When Satu does not respond immediately, Rinka interprets the silence as uncertainty and assumes Satu lacks confidence. Feeling pressured, Satu firmly states that Oshio is indeed good-looking. Rinka immediately tells her to calm down and stretches out her hand, which only confuses Satu. She declares that there should at least be a picture of him and asks to see it, questioning whether Satu truly behaves like a high school student if she cannot even show that much. Satu hesitates, embarrassed by the sudden request. She thinks about how the photo is not particularly special and worries because she herself appears in it as well. Before she can stop her, Rinka snatches the phone and bursts into laughter. She comments on Satu's stiff expression in the picture and examines the image closely. Satu tries to intervene, but Rinka does not stop. After looking properly, Rinka remarks that the boy appears somewhat delicate and not entirely to her taste. She adds that Satu is being noisy and concludes that she now understands Satu's preference. Rinka hands the phone back and casually states that Oshio is simply an ordinarily attractive boy. She questions why Satu felt the need to hide him in the first place. She then points out that Satu seemed pleased when he was described as handsome. Rinka adds that Satu herself is strikingly good-looking, which makes her uneasy. She worries that Satu might be deceived, suggesting that Oshio's intentions could be tied to appearances or social standing. Rinka reminds Satu that she has never been in a relationship before, implying that her lack of experience could prevent her from noticing such things. She suggests setting Oshio's character aside for the moment. Satu considers this carefully and admits, even to herself, that inexperience requires greater caution. She acknowledges that having feelings for someone can cloud judgment and that she does not yet fully understand these matters. Rinka responds by implying that realization often comes too late. Hearing this, Satu wonders whether Rinka is actually more mature than she is. She recalls always thinking this way, but now feels that it may truly be the case. Rinka tells Satu to stop addressing her in such a strange manner. Shortly after, they arrive at their destination. Satu had imagined the shop would be brighter and more open, and she hesitates upon seeing it. She nervously confirms the name and operating hours. Rinka corrects her, explaining that this is not the place Satu was thinking of. Relieved, Satu relaxes. Rinka then discloses that the place they are heading to is technically a grocery store, but that it carries a surprisingly decent range of clothing. She mentions that the shop mostly sells men's clothes and that the quality varies widely. Satu asks whether Rinka usually shops at more stylish places. Rinka reminds her that she is still a middle school student and cannot afford to shop extravagantly. She also confirms that Satu is serious this time, adding that her budget would not survive without occasionally buying second-hand items. Satu agrees without hesitation. They step inside the shop together and are greeted by a woman behind the counter. The woman immediately notices Rinka and then turns her attention to the unfamiliar girl beside her. Rinka introduces Satu as her cousin, Koharu, explaining that the visit is sudden and time-sensitive. She makes it clear that Koharu has an important outing coming up and cannot afford to make a mistake. She asks for professional help in choosing clothing that will guarantee a good impression. Caught off guard, Satu hurriedly agrees. Still slightly confused, she formally introduces herself. The woman reacts with interest. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, she introduces herself as Nezu Mayo, an employee of the shop Hidamari, and assures them that she will put together an appropriate outfit. Hearing this, Satu responds with visible enthusiasm, echoing the upbeat mood as she places her trust in Mayo's coordination. At the Moon Store, Misono dresses Oshio, carefully selecting pieces to create a summer-appropriate outfit. She pairs a German fisherman shirt with white work pants, adding a packet hat with navy stripes to complete a look that feels both marine and sporty. Oshio observes silently, feeling almost as if the clothes themselves exert an influence over him. Ren notes that the silhouette of the outfit is too bulky and does not complement Suda's slender frame. Oshio questions why Ren speaks on his behalf, but admits to himself that garments that reflect his build might suit him better. Ren agrees, then steps back, letting Oshio watch while Misono takes over for a moment. She evaluates his potential, guiding him carefully. Ren presents the next outfit, a paisley-patterned, open-collared shirt with gray slacks and a draped belt. The muted colors give a sophisticated feel and suit Oshio's build well. After dressing him, they check the result and agree the fitted style works, though Misono mentions it might look a bit too intentional for a high school student. Meanwhile, Ren and Misono discuss other possibilities, debating how different elements, like shoes, military-inspired pieces, cargo shorts, or French navy stripes, could change the overall style. They aim for a casual but distinctive look. Oshio is asked to pick his favorite combination. He admits he doesn't know much about fashion but wants to look presentable, especially in front of the girl he likes. He thinks about his insecurities, athletics, academics, and social skills, and realizes he mainly wants to feel comfortable and confident, not necessarily popular. Ren checks whether Misono still has a particular shirt in a specific color. She confirms it is available and pairs it with a white tank top, discussing whether denim or light blue British-style tights would work best. They consider accessories, noting that no suitable bag is immediately available, but Oshio remembers an unused sling bag he owns, which is then included in the outfit. Finally, they decide to pair the ensemble with Italian navy sailor shoes, completing the coordinated look. Misono brings the shirt over, explaining the appeal of vintage clothing and how it can highlight Suta's sense of style. She emphasizes that, for the sake of his appearance, she will leave the selection at that. Ren agrees, noting that they will carefully consider their choices and playfully defers further teasing. Oshio takes the shirt, noticing the subtle teasing from both of them, but Misono instructs him to simply go and change into the new outfit. After changing, Oshio confirms that the outfit fits without issue. Ten observes, acknowledging that he appears undeniably handsome. Ren comments on the situation with mild frustration, and Misono adds that the phrasing of their remarks feels relatively dull. Oshio reflects that the outfit does look neat, and expresses his gratitude toward Ren and Misono, deciding to keep it. Misono thanks him for his help and states the price, which Oshio finds surprisingly low for vintage clothing. She explains that she has chosen the most affordable options, aware of the financial limitations of high school students. Ren adds that the sling bag is a gift, no longer needed by him. Misono advises Oshio to use the remaining money to enhance his appearance for his upcoming date and notes that an evening discount has been applied. He thanks them sincerely, promising to do his best. Ren mentions that vintage stores are often dusty, acknowledging that this is likely Oshio's first visit to such a shop. Misono explains that the abundance of vintage items makes it unavoidable to spend some time there and suggests he should go home afterward. Oshio refuses, saying he cannot leave alone after their company so far. Ren reassures him, revealing that the store belongs to his father and that his home is just upstairs. Oshio reacts with mild surprise, and Ren confirms, telling him not to worry. At the counter, he bids farewell to Misono and thanks her for her help. She encourages him to return, noting special discounts for stormy and rainy days. Oshio reflects briefly, thinking that the discounts seem unusually generous. Satu reflects on herself, recognizing that she is naturally very shy, particularly when dealing with store clerks who approach her quickly during their first meeting. She feels uneasy in these situations, as if the clerks are her natural adversaries. Whenever she regains her composure, she notices the clerk standing before her with a tentative smile. As they speak, her thoughts often scatter, and she loses track of her words. Because of this, she has few pleasant memories associated with clothing stores. Mayo helps Satu try on an outfit, carefully adjusting it to suit her. The linen blouse is tailored to create a light, refreshing silhouette. Trendy earth tones are used to make Satu look more mature, and the simple design highlights a quiet elegance. When Satu sees the finished outfit, she is pleased and decides to buy it. She checks the total cost and is surprised by how affordable it is. Mayo explains that an evening discount has been applied. Satu thanks her and gets ready to leave. She is encouraged to come back again and is told that there are even more discounts on rainy or stormy days. Before Satu leaves, Rinka says she will stay and talk to Mayo for a little while longer. As Satu walks away, she briefly worries that the discounts might be too generous and that the clothes Mayo chose could get damaged. Suddenly, Satu almost loses her balance. Oshio reaches out from behind and catches her, stopping her from falling. She apologizes and thanks him. When she turns to look at him, she is surprised to see him, but recognizes him right away. Satu collides with Oshio and immediately looks up, stunned. She suddenly recognizes him and feels surprised. She has never seen him dressed casually before and doesn't understand why he is here. Her thoughts start racing. For days, she imagined what he would look like in casual clothes. She even flipped through men's fashion magazines at convenience stores and watched stylish actors in dramas, picturing him dressed like them. One of the main reasons she suggested spending the weekend together was simply so she could see him like this. She knows her thoughts are unusual, yet she cannot stop them. Since their plans were confirmed, these images have occupied her mind constantly. She reminds herself to be courageous and honest when the time comes, yet she realizes she is getting ahead of herself and forces herself to slow down. Oshio stands across from her, equally surprised. The sight of Satu dressed differently leaves him momentarily frozen. His mind immediately turns inward, criticizing his own hesitation. He thinks that if he cannot even express that her appearance suits her, he lacks confidence entirely. Without realizing it, words almost escape, and it overwhelms him. He quickly covers his mouth in embarrassment. He hasn't even greeted her yet, and can't believe what he almost said out loud. It seems she didn't notice, which gives him a little relief. Still, running into her unexpectedly leaves him flustered. He can't believe how much that outfit changes her. It makes her look even more charming than usual. The unexpected meeting leaves both unsettled. Satu looks away, flustered, remarking on how surprising it is to see him here. Oshio observes her reaction and immediately doubts himself. He wonders whether she is judging his clothes or thinking negatively about his choice. To clarify, he explains that he went shopping at a nearby vintage store with Ren. Satu listens quietly, still avoiding eye contact, and simply acknowledges his words. Even while listening, Oshio's attention remains fixed on her. Despite the casual situation, her presence strikes him as exceptionally charming. He trusts Ren and his sister's fashion sense far more than his own judgment, and believes that anything he chooses for himself would appear awkward or laughable. This thought threatens to discourage him, but he pushes it aside. He knows there is something important he must say. Gathering courage, he finally calls out to her. The sound of his voice startles Satu, making her visibly nervous. She turns back toward him. At last, Oshio expresses the thoughts he has been holding back, reflecting on how well her outfit suits her and how her overall appearance impresses him. Unexpectedly, Satu moves closer, her movements hesitant. Seeing this, Oshio worries she may have been hurt during their earlier collision. She stands directly in front of him and continues sharing her feelings, expressing relief and happiness. She also conveys her impressions of him, noting how cool he looks. The intensity of her reaction leaves him unprepared. He responds awkwardly, urging her to calm herself, uncertain how to react. Internally, he reflects on her words and their significance. As the moment gradually settles, he considers his next steps. Eventually, he decides that treating Ren to ramen later would be appropriate. Rinka watches them from inside the clothing store. She observes quietly, her thoughts turning to Mayo, who notices the scene as well and guesses that Oshio must be the person she had planned to go on a date with. Rinka reflects that even anticipating the date seems futile. She thinks about how, after choosing her clothes, she might have gained more self-confidence. Yet Mayo believes that sometimes such bittersweet feelings have their own meaning. The boldness of Rinka's date might make things work out. Mayo asks Rinka if she is interested in situations like that. Rinka responds that she is not. She considers it childish and notes that she is just slow. She has not changed since middle school. Having never experienced true love, she tends to think only of herself. Mayo smiles, remarking that Rinka has grown into a young woman. Irritated, she questions why Mayo-san is laughing, and she explains that she only means Rinka has reached a certain age. She reacts nervously and hesitantly. At that moment, Ren passes by outside on his bicycle. He notices Oshio on the road and continues riding, catching Rinka's attention. She realizes that the boys from the basketball club are observing Koharu. Anyone seeing a high school girl in distress in the middle of the road would be concerned. Ren bumps into a flower pot because he's distracted. His friend, riding beside him, asks what he's doing. Watching this, Rinka gets angry and moves to step outside, but Mayo tries to stop her, assuring her that everything is fine. Rinka notices the plant Asayo carefully placed and realizes how much care went into it, even if Asayo never says so. She quickly checks the leaves and feels relieved that they aren't damaged. Holding the plant, Rinka steps onto the main road and nearly gets hit by a car. Oshio rushes forward, grabs her, and pulls her out of the way. They fall to the ground, with Oshio landing on top of her. Satu and Mayo witness the scene and freeze in shock. Oshio quickly moves to her side and asks if she's okay. She reassures him, and he visibly relaxes. Letting go of her hand, he asks if she can stand. Rinka grips his hand and gets up, confirming she's fine. Worried, he asks if she's hurt and apologizes for pushing her too hard. She says she isn't injured and doesn't feel any pain, even if the situation looks bad. Though shaken, she tells herself everything is fine, as tears gather in her eyes. Satu runs up from behind and hugs Rinka tightly, apologizing for not protecting her. Relief washes over Rinka, and she repeatedly thanks Oshio for saving her. Oshio says he's just glad she wasn't hurt. Mayo checks both of them and confirms they're all right. Oshio mentions that his arms are scraped. She offers to help him wash the wounds nearby, and he politely agrees. Satu continues crying softly. Mayo gently tells her to calm down and reminds her that Koharu's face also needs attention. She suggests they wait at the store and urges Rinka to come quickly. Rinka hesitates, thinking about Oshio's injured arm, but Satu insists, saying Koharu needs care too. Satu sobs, blaming herself for rushing out without thinking and getting Koharu hurt. Rinka feels she should have taken the blame instead and wishes she had been the one scolded. Oshio places a hand on Rinka's shoulder and thanks her for not mentioning his injured arms to Satu. She denies it and apologizes again. He asks how someone should respond after being helped. She hesitates and says it's fine. Gently, he rests his hand on her head, understanding that she wanted to stay composed in front of Satu. He thanks her and says he'll head off first. Rinka stands there, watching him leave, overwhelmed. She struggles to process everything and keeps telling herself that it's not what she thinks. But she realizes the truth. The person who just walked away is her first love, and her feelings are completely one-sided. In that moment, she understands that this is where her story truly begins. Mayo tells Satu that Oshio-kun will not be coming out for a while, explaining that his damaged clothes need repairing and it will take time. Since it is already late, she suggests the girls head home. Satu refuses, arguing that sewing should not take long. Mayo smiles and lightly teases her, noting how impatient she seems to see Oshio-kun. Flustered, Satu fires back, asking why Rinka-chan is not leaving and even offering to walk her home. Rinka calmly asks that her apology be passed on to Oshio-san for earlier trouble. Later, Mayo checks on Oshio in the store. Relieved that the others have left, he relaxes. She immediately notices his injury and asks to examine it. He explains it was badly scraped but no longer hurts, though he has always been uneasy around blood. She brings a first aid kit and cleans the wound. He thanks her for both the treatment and stepping in earlier. As she works, he recalls rushing to help Rinka and feels quietly proud. Mayo then asks about Koharu-chan and his feelings toward her. Caught off guard, he says Koharu is oblivious and naturally scatterbrained. He admits this makes him both relieved and slightly disappointed, since she cannot sense affection easily. Lost in thought, Mayo comments that things might be easier for Rinka-chan than expected, observing that people often support someone who appears weaker, even when responsibility is shared. She adds that it is partly his fault, though he does not understand. The sting of the medicine makes him flinch. Ignoring his frustration, she shifts the topic and presses him about how he sees Rinka. When the antiseptic burns sharply, he blurts out that he finds her appealing, especially her hairstyle. Mayo assures him the wound will heal, and while wrapping it, briefly wonders if longer hair would suit her. Oshio reflects that such questions would not change anything. He thinks everyone has a style that suits them. Their conversation is interrupted by loud voices announcing closing time and suggesting drinks. Oshio recognizes Shizuku immediately. She approaches, notices his bandage, and comments on it. Mayo admits she already knew, since the clothes came from Shizuku's shop. Oshio mentions that Shizuku's younger brother is his friend. Shizuku enthusiastically confirms this and introduces herself as Suta's friend's older sister. Mayo playfully echoes her request that they get along. Shizuku hugs Mayo and explains their close bond. Childhood friends, same university, same sweets research club, nearby shops, and the habit of meeting at Moon after closing. Oshio gradually understands. Shizuku says he is lucky to join them. Overwhelmed, he notes he is underage, but she waves it off and suggests soft drinks instead. Mayo stays behind to finish work and tells them to go ahead. After they leave, she asks if Rinka-chan will join. Rinka steps out, admitting she had been hiding. She had returned to thank Oshio again. She decides not to join, hesitates, then chooses to leave. Mayo casually mentions Oshio will be there. Rinka insists it makes no difference. Mayo suggests sending a message through Mine, saying even a simple note can feel nice before sleep. Rinka denies any interest. Mayo then remarks that Rinka's hairstyle suits her. Irritated, Rinka firmly denies having feelings for Oshio and insists there is nothing romantic. Mayo asks if she likes him. Flustered, Rinka abruptly leaves. Outside, Rinka walks quickly, thoughts racing. She insists everyone is mistaken. The memory of nearly being hit by a car resurfaces, and she blames her shaking on that. The heat explains her flushed face. Her racing heart is only from running. Again and again, she rejects any other meaning, warning herself not to think such foolish thoughts. At the cafe, Oshio sits with Shizuku and Mayo, quietly drinking while they circle around the topic of his feelings for Satu. He neither confirms nor denies anything, choosing silence instead. Shizuku keeps teasing him, asking whether he has any proof of his interest. Despite the pressure, he stays composed. Mayo suddenly mentions that she has a picture of Satu, uploaded earlier through Hidamari Minsta. The comment unsettles him. He briefly wonders if Satu had been preparing for their meeting even before they met. Shizuku is shocked as he slaps himself and asks about it, but he brushes it off as nothing. Mayo shows the photo to Shizuku, who studies it carefully. She comments on the contrast between Satu's appearance and her personality. Mayo adds that this very contrast makes her charming. Turning back to Suta, Shizuku asks how far things have progressed. He admits nothing intimate has happened, not even a small gesture, though they have taken a photo together. Shizuku reacts with disbelief. Frustration creeps into her voice as she accuses him of being a fake cool guy. Suta denies ever claiming that. Shizuku argues that people in love need a push and that hesitation only creates distance. Suta replies that everyone moves at their own pace. She presses further, suggesting his caution shows a lack of commitment. He counters that genuine care means being careful, avoiding harm, and not causing unnecessary trouble. To him, restraint is also a form of affection. Shizuku reflects on this, but insists that complications are inevitable when people grow close. She suggests his fear may be about protecting himself more than Satu, then asks for his phone. Suda refuses and apologizes softly, hoping to end the matter. Shizuku calls his refusal a crime. Though he thinks there is nothing unusual on his phone, he still wonders about her intention. When he finally takes it out, she swiftly snatches it. As she scrolls, he quietly questions what she plans to do. Mayo notices and asks what is happening. Shizuku replies that she simply wants to give someone a small push. Elsewhere, Satu returns home and announces herself. Her mother responds nearby, startling her, and asks why she ignored her phone earlier. Satu apologizes, explaining that the store was crowded and she forgot to reply. Her mother murmurs about timing and resemblance, then says she can no longer ignore the situation. Entering her room, Satu finds her father dressed formally, despite being home. He remarks on how late she is. She comments on his early return, but he immediately demands an explanation. She says she went shopping for clothes with a friend after school. He criticizes children being out so late and calls her closer. He brings up a recent social media scandal involving inappropriate behavior by a student working part-time at a major restaurant chain. He condemns the act as irresponsible and lacking discipline. When he asks Satu about the purpose of education, her simple answer earns his dismissal. He explains that education exists to rise above instinct and impulse. Without guidance, people follow desire and take the easiest path. Responsible adults must lead the young. He gestures to the television, calling the boy an example of failure caused by poor upbringing. Freedom, he insists, belongs only to the mature. Actions online never truly disappear, and consequences extend to family. He warns Satu that she is not yet fully developed and should not take on more than she can handle. Later, she showers and sinks into the bath, reflecting on the day. She admits coming home late was partly her fault and feels drained. Her thoughts drift to Oshio. She wishes she could handle situations with the same calm presence. The harsh words from earlier linger, and she feels they could have been spoken more gently. More than anything, she wants reassurance from him. Glancing at her phone, she realizes that although they exchanged contact information, they have barely messaged. Her heart beats faster as she considers what to send, something simple or something more honest. The idea of mentioning their next meeting makes her hesitate. She imagines how comforting it would feel to hear from him. She decides she should thank him first and perhaps apologize for earlier. Just as she gathers her courage, a notification appears on her screen. A message from Oshio lights up her phone. Satu sits in the bathtub, staring at the message on her phone. Seeing her name on the screen fills her with confusion. She reads it again and again, trying to understand what it means. Maybe it is a sign of affection. Maybe it is just a typing mistake. Maybe it was meant for someone else. Her surname is common, after all. Even so, a small happiness blooms inside her at the thought that it might truly be for her. Her heart pounds. She has never faced a moment like this before. Knowing he can see that she has read the message only makes it harder. She feels trapped between excitement and the fear of replying the wrong way. At the shop, Shizuku complains that Oshio is too slow, earning a light scolding from Mayo. He quietly steps away to call Satu so he will not disturb them. They both answer at the same time and awkwardly say each other's names. Unsure what to talk about and afraid of saying something that might make her dislike him, he laughs nervously and gently asks if she is busy. The tension slowly eases. They talk about how unexpected it was to meet today. Oshio mentions shaved ice on Saturdays, and Satu replies that she cannot remember the last time she enjoyed something so simple and ordinary. Still overwhelmed, Satu apologizes for not being special and thanks him for his thoughtfulness. She reassures him that his earlier message is not a problem, though she may not be able to join him for their planned outing. Oshio glances back and sees Shizuku and Mayo watching. Shizuku whispers that he likes her. He feels the weight of his own hesitation. He wants to respect her feelings, but he also cannot ignore his own. After the call ends, he realizes something important. His hesitation was not just fear of being disliked. It came from how deeply he feels about her. He calls her again, addressing her formally. He apologizes for the earlier message, admitting it may have seemed careless or unclear. Then he speaks honestly. His feelings are real. They are romantic and serious. He tells her he has liked her since they first met. Her smiles, her frustrations, her fears, everything about her matters to him. His kindness is not casual, it is because she is special to him. She listens quietly and gives a short reply before ending the call. At that moment, her mother calls out from the other room, worried about the noise. Satu answers weakly from the bathroom and almost slips under the water. Her mother rushes in and pulls her out. As she catches her breath, the truth becomes clear. She likes him too. Later, her father notices a boy's name on her phone and mutters that perhaps he gave her a phone too early. Satu wakes up in the morning and immediately notices her state. The realization startles her, As she gathers herself, she remembers that she spent extra time bathing, after which her mother guided her back to her room and took care of her until she rested. Her phone is not beside her on the bed, but placed on a table a short distance away. Still wrapped in the blanket, she gets up and goes to check it. On the screen, she sees a message from Oshio. The words confirm that what happened the previous day was not a hazy illusion brought on by exhaustion. Understanding sinks in, and she feels certain that his feelings have finally been made clear. She tries to reassure herself that this moment is real and not something imagined while half asleep. She collapses back onto the bed and turns over again and again. The memory of his confession comes back vividly, including how he said it directly to her, not only through a message. She remembers that he shared how his feelings began when they first met, around the time of the entrance examinations. Thinking back, she realizes that her own feelings started to grow from that same point. On the day her anxiety overwhelmed her, he was the only one who treated her with kindness. From then until now, their paths have continued side by side, repeating the same pattern again and again. As she looks back over all her memories, she understands that he has always been there, and that his feelings never changed. This realization fills her with certainty that they share the same emotions. Suddenly, a thought crosses her mind. She checks her phone again and realizes that she has already sent a reply to his confession. Relief washes over her as she remembers responding before drifting off to sleep. At the time, her mind had felt overheated and empty, and everything after that had blurred together. She calms herself and starts thinking about getting ready for school. Staying in bed, she loses track of time, and before she knows it, the clock shows 7:58. Only then does she realize she is running late. On the other side, Oshio walks to school alongside Ren. His posture and behavior make it obvious that his mood is unusually heavy, as if everything has already fallen apart. Ren notices this and quickly understands the reason. Oshio has recently been turned down by the person he cared about most, and it happened only a few hours earlier. It was his first serious romantic feeling, something that began during his years in the 11th grade. Oshio thinks about how honestly he confessed his feelings for the first time, only to be left feeling embarrassed and empty. The night before, what was supposed to be a small gathering with Shizuku and Mayo turned into a long session of emotional support just for him. Shizuku kept apologizing through tears, and Mayo stayed beside him, helping him calm down. He finally understands why people sometimes step away from their responsibilities when they are heartbroken. Even the next morning, walking to school with Ren, the pain has not faded. Ren tries to cheer him up. He says that disappointment in first love is normal and reminds him that there are many people in the world. He admits that his own early romantic experiences do not mean much to him anymore. In his view, life moves on, and eventually the right person will appear. Oshio cannot accept that so easily. Ren keeps encouraging him to look forward instead of backward. He even starts to suggest finding someone new, briefly mentioning a girl close to them before quickly saying that would be inappropriate. Oshio feels relieved when the topic drops and goes no further. Ren then shifts his attention to Mayo, pointing out her attractiveness and reminding him that they exchanged contact information the previous day. He confidently lays out a plan, imagining casual group meetings that could eventually lead to a more personal outing. Despite all of this, he remains troubled. Even if other possibilities exist, he cannot stop thinking that things would have been better if they had worked out with Satu. Ren listens carefully and grows more serious, questioning whether the situation is truly as terrible as Oshio believes based on his own past experiences. Oshio, overwhelmed by the attempt to console him, cuts off the discussion, unable to handle any more misplaced reassurance. As they continue walking forward, a voice suddenly calls out from behind. Rinka runs up to them, calling Oshio's name. He turns toward her and checks on her condition, asking whether she was safe the previous day and if she suffered any other injuries. For a brief moment, he wonders if her behavior means she feels uneasy around him. Rinka bows politely in front of him, expressing her gratitude for what happened earlier. Oshio immediately dismisses it, insisting that it was nothing worth mentioning. When she notices the bandage, she asks about it, and he explains that it is only a minor wound and not a serious issue. In his thoughts, he acknowledges her strong sense of honesty, while also noticing how physically delicate she seems. Oshio then apologizes to Ren and introduces Rinka as Satu's cousin, Pseudo-Rinka. Ren steps forward and introduces himself as well, speaking in a very casual manner. Rinka reacts strongly, clearly uncomfortable with being addressed so informally. Ren becomes awkward and corrects himself, addressing her more properly. Ren changes the topic and says that Oshio's problem is not just his physical injury, but something much deeper. He suggests they talk again another time. Rinka reacts sharply, asking what he means, and pointing out that it sounds inappropriate to say something like that in front of someone younger. Ren then explains clearly that Oshio was just rejected by the first person he ever loved. Rinka's expression changes at once. Ren bluntly points out that her mood has obviously dropped and adds that Oshio is not in a condition to joke about it. Hearing that, Rinka quickly calls out to Oshio again. He answers immediately, and they exchange mine IDs. At school, Oshio sits quietly at his desk, his mind drifting far from the classroom. He feels down after being rejected by his first love. He notices Satu, the salt goddess, scattering salt in the corner at certain times. During break, two boys approach Satu, trying to start a casual conversation and invite her to lunch. She immediately turns them down, making it clear she isn't interested. One boy hesitates, then asks to exchange contact info, but she refuses again, saying she doesn't share personal details with people she doesn't know. Another boy boldly suggests spending time together after school, but her response is sharp and unmistakable. Oshio watches quietly, focusing on Satu's interaction. He believes her words aren't meant maliciously. Her refusals probably have ordinary reasons. Still, he admits that the way she expresses herself can sound harsh and sometimes causes unnecessary trouble. Nearby, Ren notices how affected Oshio is and asks if he's really that shaken. Oshio begins doubting himself, wondering if he's overreacting or being unmanly. Ren criticizes him bluntly, telling him to stop acting this way if he has any pride left. Unsure how to respond, Oshio admits he's been focused on Satu for a long time, and that feelings like these don't disappear overnight. He begins thinking that giving up might be the only option. Ren shares his own perspective on love and failure. Mistakes in romance don't bother him. They can create opportunities. He believes the best way to approach love is not by chasing feelings directly, but by offering guidance instead. Oshio notices how harsh and ruthless Ren's way of thinking sounds. Even so, Ren insists he is sincere. He says his bluntness comes from being Oshio's friend. Then he tells Oshio to let go of Satu and move on. Oshio stands in silence, letting the words sink in. He reflects quietly and realizes Ren understands his distress and spoke harshly on purpose to prevent him from making things worse or hurting himself further. Oshio feels a sense of gratitude, recognizing the kindness beneath Ren's bluntness. Ren treats it as just bad timing and advises him not to dwell on it. Left alone, Oshio analyzes everything carefully. He considers what went wrong, whether it was the words, the way feelings were expressed, or timing. He realizes the problem might be more complicated. Perhaps Satu simply doesn't see him romantically. Looking back, he sees how much meaning he placed on small moments, like a couple of outings, or when she asked for advice. He feels deep embarrassment, recognizing how foolish his assumptions were. In the end, he accepts that the misunderstanding came from his own expectations and feelings racing ahead of reality. At that moment, Satu approaches. Oshio becomes alert, unsure what to expect. She shows him a photo they took together and asks if he's comfortable with her sharing it online. The sudden question leaves him stunned. Seeing his surprise, she hesitates, worried she might be making him uncomfortable, and reassures him she won't insist if he doesn't like it. It does not take long for Oshio to realize that he does not actually oppose the idea, and he makes this clear. Relief appears on Satu's face, and she seems genuinely pleased by his response. She explains that she heard boys often dislike things like this and was anxious about how he might react. Feeling reassured, she tells him that she will message him later and says she is looking forward to seeing him again the next day. With that, she leaves. Having watched the exchange, Ren turns toward Oshio as though he is about to comment. Overwhelmed, Oshio drops his head onto the desk in frustration. To himself, he admits that he cannot understand Satu at all. When it comes to romance and emotions, everything feels confusing, leaving him completely lost and unable to grasp how any of it truly works. Later, at home, Satu lies stretched out on her bed, holding her phone above her face. Her eyes linger on the picture of herself together with Oshio, returning to it again and again with a soft, absorbed expression. In her heart, she reflects on how unimaginable it once seemed that her feelings could ever be returned. Now, the happiness feels overwhelming, and she quietly savors it. Thoughts of the following day soon surface. She eagerly anticipates their plan to go out for shaved ice, thinking of it as their first real outing since realizing that their feelings align. Excitement builds as she imagines talking about many different topics, taking photos together, and letting the day unfold naturally. Careful planning follows, including the decision to choose her nicest outfit. She also considers her appearance, knowing she is not skilled with makeup, yet plans to try her hardest. Before anything else, her attention returns to the photo still displayed on her screen. A decision is made to share it online, and the upload is completed. The act feels ordinary, like something a typical high school girl would do when posting a picture with someone she loves. Seeing the post finished brings a sense of fulfillment, as though something once only wished for has finally become real. She hopes that this happiness will not fade, and that the moment will continue, just as it is. Suddenly, someone calls her from outside the room. Startled, Satu looks up from her phone as she becomes aware of her surroundings. Almost immediately, a firm knock sounds on the door. Her father's voice calls from the other side, telling her to come out at once because something serious needs to be discussed. Oshio and Ren are seated inside the cafe. Ren tries to ease the atmosphere, but Oshio remains tense and withdrawn. He apologizes and makes it clear that relaxing is not something he can manage right now, even suggesting that Ren is free to leave if he'd like. He refuses, staying put, and says that leaving like that would not sit right with him. Oshio's father arrives and observes the situation. Noting that he looks exhausted, he reflects that hardship is meant to build a person, yet things have reached an unhealthy point. He asks what Oshio plans to do next and offers to prepare a herbal drink. Our guy immediately refuses, saying he cannot handle anything made by his father. He comments on how remarkable everyone around him is and drifts into heavy thoughts. He believes that people eventually forget even the deepest pain while continuing to exist in the same world. In his mind, he imagines an easier ending, where everything would have simply stopped the moment his confession failed, as if life itself had cut to black. In that imagined outcome, both he and Satu would have continued separately, she moving forward, likely finding someone admirable, while he would remain only as a distant, supportive presence who never crossed a line. As these thoughts overwhelm him, he starts coughing uncontrollably. Ren reacts immediately, moving closer and telling him to stop spiraling. He calls out to Oshio for thinking strangely again, questioning whether a first love should hold this much power. Ren urges him to calm himself and think rationally, reminding him that he had been overly worked up until just moments ago. Oshio admits that he was carried away. Ren, half joking and half serious, reaches for Oshio's phone, insisting that distraction and sleep would fix everything. Oshio's father sharply interrupts, scolding Ren for trying to teach his son such things. Oshio supports his father, snapping at Ren to read the situation properly. He looks down at his phone, still irritated, when his attention shifts to the screen. He sees his conversation with Satu, including the confession he sent earlier. A new message appears from her, asking for help. Shocked, he immediately tries to respond, sending multiple messages asking what happened and what she needs. When no reply comes, he calls her repeatedly, panic building as the phone continues to ring. Finally, the call connects. The voice on the other end does not belong to Satu. The man introduces himself as Koharu's father, Satu Kazuharu. Oshio freezes, realizing who he is speaking to. Kazuharu confirms his identity and questions why Oshio has Koharu's contact information. Oshio's own father interjects sharply, correcting Oshio for addressing the man too familiarly. Oshio demands to know why Kazuharu answered Satu's phone. Kazuharu responds coldly, saying he only answered in case of urgency and owes Oshio no explanation. He prepares to end the call, but Oshio stops him, insisting he deserves clarity. Oshio argues that Satu's personal communications should not be controlled by her father. Kazuharu states plainly that he has confiscated her phone, making it clear the decision is final and not open to debate. He dismisses Oshio's objections as irrelevant family matters, even as Oshio insists he is Satu's friend. Kazuharu acknowledges their closeness, thanks Oshio, and reveals that he has known who he is for some time. As the conversation continues, Oshio recalls Satu talking excitedly about her dreams, imagining herself becoming popular online, and thinking about how to improve her photos. He snaps back to the call and asks Kazuharu to retract his earlier implication. When Kazuharu questions him, Oshio insists that dismissing something Satu genuinely cares about is wrong. Kazuharu responds that this attitude is why he took control of her phone and reiterates that he has no interest in arguing. Oshio challenges the morality of answering her phone and asks about plans he heard for the next day. Kazuharu informs him that those plans are cancelled as Satu is forbidden from going out. Declaring the matter settled, he ends the call, leaving Oshio staring at his phone in silence. He sits in thought, turning over the events in his mind. He wonders if it is pointless to involve himself in someone else's family matters, especially after being rejected. He acknowledges that staying close to Satu could bring more pain and doubts whether matters of love are worth the effort. Ren's advice about letting things end seems reasonable, yet Oshio cannot fully let go. He decides to speak to Satu's father directly, suggesting he take action on her behalf. Kazuharu questions him, but Oshio insists that if her father is unwilling, he must step in himself. He admits he may not be thinking clearly, but feels compelled to act. He reasons that the things he wanted to show Satu are ultimately what she would want to see, so he resolves to convey them to her father instead. Kazuharu arranges a meeting, proposing a time and place at a cafe. Oshio agrees, marking the moment in his mind, planning to drink tea and have a proper conversation. Ren watches, surprised by Oshio's determination, noting how resolute he is. Meanwhile, he focuses on a photo Satu uploaded online. His eyes fill with tears of happiness. He admits his feelings haven't changed and asks for everyone's help. Ren comments on his resolve, recognizing the seriousness of his commitment. On Friday, Oshio notices Satu's father's car parked near the cafe. As he steps out, Oshio realizes that the meeting is about to begin. Satu's father arrives promptly at 7 in the evening and stands in front of Oshio. He invites the man to sit and prepares tea. Satu's father observes him and confirms that he works at the cafe, to which Oshio replies that he is off duty at the moment. The conversation begins with Satu's father making it clear that they should speak directly about the matter at hand. Oshio goes to prepare the tea and mentions the type he is serving, noting that Koharu has had it before. Satu's father explains the purpose of the meeting and asks Oshio what he expects him to do. Oshio responds that he wants Koharu's phone returned and requests that her father to recognize the significance of her interest in social media rather than dismiss it because he does not want her to feel restricted. Kazuhara-san says that he does not see this as limiting her. He describes his daughter as someone who struggles to communicate, expresses her emotions poorly, and has difficulty understanding others' feelings. He emphasizes that sensitive individuals like her can sometimes act irrationally. Oshio asks whether this means he is protecting her rather than restraining her, and Satu's father confirms that this is his intention. Oshio realizes that he must remain firm. He insists that taking the phone and dismissing her actions cannot be considered protective behavior. Satu's father questions what exactly is wrong with his approach. Oshio counters that ordinary parents would not act in this way. Satu's father remarks that if everyone were ordinary, there would be no need for educational theories. Oshio argues that granting freedom purely for the sake of learning could be reckless, like letting a child run without guidance. He stresses that parents must take responsibility and intervene when necessary. Satu's father replies that he would take full responsibility for any outcome, acting as both a father and an adult. He presents hypothetical situations where Koharu might neglect her studies, fail to enter her desired university, or become socially isolated because of online interactions. Oshio exclaims that there seems to be no limit to the scenarios he considers. Satu's father challenges him, asking how he would take responsibility if his guidance failed. Oshio acknowledges that while people can grow through hardship, some may stop developing when hurt. He notes that Satu's father has a valid point, realizing that leaving Koharu to face frustration entirely alone would be irresponsible. He concludes that it is appropriate for a reasonable adult to protect her while allowing her to mature gradually. Satu's father ends the discussion by drinking the tea and indicating that there is nothing further to discuss. He passes the cup to Oshio and comments that the meeting has taken considerable time. Oshio senses the unspoken tension and regret that must still exist inside Satu, recognizing that she is stronger than she appears on the surface. Once the conversation concludes, Oshio reflects that past events are now behind them. The topic shifts to Koharu's attachment to social media. Muscles, nearby, questions whether her engagement with Minstagram serves any meaningful purpose. Observing her phone, Oshio notes that she uses the app to preserve memories, but Muscles dismisses it as unnecessary, suggesting that high school students primarily use it to display photos, and that attempting to document moments is largely futile because memories naturally fade over time. Oshio considers the moment just before sunset, reflecting that no matter how enjoyable an experience is or how strongly one wishes to remember it, memories fade. Muscles observes that even a brief, cherished experience with someone important is not something he would want to forget. Oshio realizes that the desire to preserve such moments is often tied to the wish to show them to others. Muscles agrees, noting that this perspective aligns with how Koharu experiences things. Oshio quietly recognizes that he has failed in some way. From the back of the cafe, the voices of Oshio's friends could be heard. They had been standing quietly, unnoticed. Muscles asks if they were part of Oshio's plan. He explains that the plan involved everyone sending messages to Satu's phone to appeal to him. Muscles comments that the approach seems shallow, leaving Oshio conflicted about how to persuade her. He confirms that the group consists of her friends, and Oshio agrees, noting that including them makes the group larger than expected. He notices Kazuhira-san smiling among them. Satu's father then explains why he took her smartphone. He points out that Oshio has misunderstood his motivations. Oshio assumes it was because her father dislikes her using the social media app, but he corrects him, saying modern parents rarely act out of mere dislike. His actions were influenced by practical matters, like Wi-Fi limitations, and managing a daughter who lacks understanding can be challenging. The people nearby listen in surprise. He continues, explaining that the family shares a data plan and she nearly consumes the entire allowance, leaving only a small portion remaining. Oshio is surprised at how much she uses. Her father notes that she repeatedly views the same photos from the same account, preventing him from contacting his wife, sending work emails, or checking the news as usual. Oshio, feeling embarrassed, recalls he had just received a call. He clarifies that calling is still possible, even with limited internet. Oshio asks about the message she sent asking for help. Her father explains that she panicked, thinking her phone was broken due to the internet restrictions, and likely sent the message at that time. Oshio then asks why her phone was taken. Her father explains he could not allow her to continue accessing unfamiliar websites until the communication limits were resolved. The restriction on going out was simply to allow them to visit the store and adjust the contract. Oshio reflects that this is unlike anything he has experienced before. He realizes that most parents would not impose such restrictions, and that her father, like her, struggles to express emotions clearly. Satu arrives at the cafe, apologizing for being unaware of the situation and causing trouble for Oshio. She expresses regret for breaking her promise about the shaved ice. Her father also apologizes, acknowledging that the situation arose from his own failure to communicate clearly. He shows Oshio a pamphlet for a local fireworks festival, noting that stalls, including possibly a shaved ice stand, should be set up. He adds that she has already completed her errands and could be forgiven if she goes out briefly. Oshio is shocked and asks whether her father knew everything that had happened. He responds ambiguously, leaving Oshio to reflect on how perceptive and lenient some parents can be with their daughters. In the end, he concludes that her father is extremely overprotective. Oshio's father, Kazuhira, sits at the cafe while Saizumon serves pancakes to him. Kazuhira notices the dish and realizes it isn't what he ordered. Saizumon recalls that they were once classmates, which Kazuhira acknowledges with faint recognition and a sense of relief. Still, he admits he has little interest in sweet foods, or in people for that matter. Saizumon remarks on how much he has changed, pointing out that he has lost the muscle tone he once had during their football days. Kazuhira reflects that he no longer needs that kind of physique and dismisses it as unnecessary. Saizumon counters that well-built muscles are not meaningless. Kazuhira feels a quiet sense of regret about something related to him. In response, Saizumon observes that he now shows pity, something he lacked as a student. She adds that becoming a parent has clearly influenced him. He denies this, saying only that Suta has grown up. Saizumon asks for his impression of Suta, but he deflects, aware that her true interest lies in seeing him. She suggests that next time they visit, they should order the same items again. He considers the idea but admits he would probably choose tea once more, as he avoids overly sweet food. Then he suddenly remembers that he forgot to take a photograph. Behind them, Rinka criticizes the simplicity of the adults' conversation, expressing frustration at being caught up in their minor issues. Ren, feeling exasperated, decides to leave first. Mayo reassures them that there is no need to endure it any longer. Rinka reflects on her own experience with unrequited feelings, recognizing that love does not always follow logic, no matter one's confidence or efforts. Shizuku agrees with this observation, and Mayo concurs. Rinka allows herself to shed a few tears, acknowledging the situation's finality. Shizuku and Mayo approach her, offering support and suggesting that they get drinks together, just the three of them. At night, Oshio and Satu ride their bicycles together, both feeling a mixture of confusion and tension. Each is preoccupied with their own thoughts about their relationship, trying to reconcile recent events and misunderstandings. As they ride, they accidentally call each other by name, surprising both of them. They pause briefly, acknowledging the awkwardness, and then Oshio allows Satu to speak first. Satu expresses regret for troubling Oshio and others, and apologizes for the fear caused by her father. Oshio admits that he was somewhat intimidated, though he tries to downplay it. Satu reassures him that there is no need to worry, as everything has already been resolved. Oshio reflects silently, realizing that children cannot fully understand the feelings and concerns of their parents. He feels a slight sense of sympathy for Kazuhira. Satu then reaches out, holding Oshio from behind, and mentions that she wants to properly respond to his previous confession. Oshio's mind races, imagining the worst possible answer, but Satu quickly explains that she is not pressuring him for an immediate reply. She recalls how overwhelmed she felt when he confessed, fainting in the bathtub from happiness, and how she only remembers waking up later in bed. She had wanted to respond properly ever since. Satu embraces Oshio from behind and points out that his confession had been made in a vulnerable moment, so their situation is balanced. She admits that she has always liked him, recalling moments from the past when he had protected her and how her feelings began even earlier. At that moment, fireworks light up the sky above them. Oshio thinks that he is grateful they chose to ride bicycles, hoping Satu does not notice his embarrassed reaction. He suggests that they visit many places together in the future, and Satu proposes getting shaved ice before anything else. They continue cycling, crossing a bridge as they discuss their plans, moving forward side by side. It is late July. The ruins of Umi Castle still carry the atmosphere of its past, drawing visitors as a well-known sightseeing spot. The castle was destroyed long ago by a lightning strike. The town of Umi, once a castle town, lies next to Sakuraba. On the streets, couples wearing kimonos seem weighed down by the summer heat, their enjoyment fading under the intensity of the sun. A little further along, down a narrow alley, stands a famous restaurant called Ukigumo Dao, known for its picturesque desserts. Oshio and Satu arrive and place their orders. Soon, a vibrant purple shaved ice is brought to them. The server explains that the color comes from a special flower, butterfly pea, and that pouring lemon juice over it changes the color, triggering a reaction with the acidity. Oshio watches Satu eagerly as she prepares to pour the lemon juice, realizing that she is now his girlfriend. The thought makes him both astonished and happy. He struggles to fully grasp the reality of it. Satu begins to eat, and Oshio instinctively reaches to guide her hand, almost helping her with the first spoonful. He hesitates for a moment, feeling self-conscious about their closeness, but finally decides to go along naturally. The lemon is poured, and a small piece of ice jumps from the bowl. Oshio catches it with his spoon and feeds it to her himself. As he does, he debates internally whether his actions are awkward or embarrassing, yet he continues, determined to follow through without overthinking. Satu, though slightly shy, accepts the bite and tastes it. The server reminds them that the syrup is served separately and that they may add it or condensed milk if they wish. She encourages them to enjoy their treat, leaving Oshio and Satu to their shared moment with the colorful shaved ice. The next day, Oshio tells Ren about what happened. Ren asks him what comes next. Oshio explains that they took the train together but parted ways at Sakuraba Station. Ren reacts, noting how intimidating the situation seems. Oshio mentions that he prefers to keep it private, worried about his sister and Mayo finding out. Ren presses him for details, urging him to share everything. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Shizuku and Mayo enjoy their pancakes, commenting on how delicious they are. Unbeknownst to them, they are overhearing the conversation between Oshio and Ren. Oshio insists to Ren that nothing more happened beyond going out for shaved ice. Ren admits that not understanding the situation makes him uneasy. He describes it as unnerving. Shizuku quietly speculates about the nature of the event, prompting Ren to tell Oshio to stop interrupting. He adds that he wants to offer relationship advice, though he has little experience himself. Shizuku warns Mayo not to interfere too much in high school relationships, reminding her that they are college students now. Ren, however, continues to lecture Oshio. He points out that Oshio should have acted more like a couple by holding hands and being aware of dating etiquette. He feels nervous, recalling that Satu is inexperienced and that the situation is difficult because of her charm. Ren notices that Oshio is flustered and beginning to admit his feelings. Oshio confesses that he wants to act like a couple, but is already overwhelmed with the circumstances. Ren asks who took a photo of the two of them. Oshio reflects that at that time, he did not think Satu reciprocated his feelings. Since they began dating, he finds it hard to meet her gaze and wonders how to handle situations like this. Ren admits that he cannot give guidance, having forgotten his own first love and lacking confidence in dating. He worries about showing Satu an uncool side of himself. Mayo suggests asking Rinka for guidance and encourages him to seek her advice to learn how to act in these situations.